Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvise Shunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Brahmadakacharya Asadhara Sadhushi Shriman, His Divine Grace Shalasi Bhaktivedanta Smaraj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande Haribol, Slava Zabrani Bhakta, Slava Shri Guru Shri Gurangi, Gurangi. Is it Guranga or Gurangi? No, I know in Bengal. I'm just talking about Slovene. Gurangi. Yeah, Gurangi. What's that? Him. It's called the dative case. Om Agyanatavanandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksuramilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagradatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Vrijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shiva Sakans Vitams Cha Hey Krishna Karna Sindho Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishubhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tribhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patiranam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranitananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 3, Karma Yoga, text number 3. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Lokesmin Dvivida Nishta Puro Prokta Mayanaga Yano Yogena Sankhyanam Karma Yogena Yoginam. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Lokesmin Dvivida Nishta Puro Prokta Mayanaga Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam Karma Yogena Yoginam. Lokesmin Dvivida Nishta Puro Prokta Mayanaga Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam Karma Yogena Yoginam. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Lokesmin Dvivida Nishta Puro Prokta Mayanaga Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam Karma Yogena Yoginam. Mataji. Bhagavan Uvacha Lokesmin Dvivida Nishta Puro Prokta Mayanaga Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam Karma Yogena Yoginam. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Loke, in the world, Asmin, this, Dvivida, two kinds of, Nishta, faith, Pura, formerly, Prokta, were said, Maya, by me, Anaga, O sinless one, Jnana Yogena, by the linking process of knowledge, Sankhyanam, of the empiric philosophers, Karma Yogena, by the linking process of devotion, Yoginam, of the devotees. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O sinless Arjuna, I have explained that there are two classes of men who try to realize the self. Some are inclined to understand it by empirical, philosophical speculation, and others by devotional service. Please repeat. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O sinless Arjuna, I've already explained that there are two classes of men who try to realize the self. Some are inclined to understand it by empirical philosophical speculation, and others by devotional service. Purport, in the second chapter, verse 39, the Lord explained two kinds of procedures, namely Sankhya Yoga and Karma Yoga, or Buddha Yoga. In this verse, the Lord explains the same more clearly. Sankhya Yoga, or the analytical study of the nature of spirit and matter, is a subject matter for persons who are inclined to speculate and understand things by experimental knowledge and philosophy. The other class of men work in Krishna consciousness, as it explained in the 61st verse of the second chapter. Anyone remember the 61st verse of the second chapter? Dhani sarvani samyamya yukta sitamat praha vishehi yasyendriyani tasya pragya pratishtita. One who restrains his senses and fixes his consciousness upon me is known as a man of steady intelligence. So that's called Krishna consciousness. The other class of men work in Krishna consciousness is explained in the 61st verse of the second chapter. One who restrains his senses and fixes his consciousness upon me is known as a man of steady intelligence. So ultimately, Krishna will explain later on. One who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness upon me, is to be known as a man of steady intelligence. So this full control means to engage it in devotional service. It's not the impersonalist way of just restraining the senses and just thinking, meditating, but actually utilizing the senses in Krishna's service, offering arti, chanting, cooking for Krishna. That means that they're under full control. The Lord has explained also in the 39th verse that by working the principles of Buddha Yoga or Krishna consciousness, one can be relieved from the bonds of action, and furthermore, there is no flaw in the process. So which is 39? Must be Neha Bikramanash Hosti, Pratyavayo, that's 40. Esha te bihita sankye Buddha Yoga Twimam Shrinu Buddhya Yukto Yaya Parata Karma Bandham Prahasati. Thus far I've described this knowledge to you through analytical study. Now listen and explain of working without free results. O son of Pritha, when you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of work. So acting without desire for results means the material results. Acting for the satisfaction of Krishna without any other motivation is said to be acting without desire for free results. Because after all, the idea that we're going to get the fruit means that we must be the proprietor. But actually we have nothing to do with the material world because we're transcendental to it. And therefore the idea that we own anything here, that's all it is, an idea. We're not controlling anything. If you were actually the owner of something, we can control something. But we can't even control even one atom here. Think of one atom in your body and tell it to stop whatever it's doing. Can you do that? Dear atom in my heart, can you please just take a rest for a little while? We can't. No, we can't do anything. We have no way. We don't even know how we could even possibly do anything. We're just experiencing. We're not really doing anything. Of course, we can will that let my hand move. But then again, if my hand was paralyzed, it doesn't matter how much I will, it wouldn't move. So we're not the only factor. We may desire, and then somehow or another there's a range of my hand moves, but that doesn't mean that I'm actually the controller of my hand. It means somehow or another it's happening. So the 39th chapter, without desire for free results, in the background, it means that actually we believe that Krishna is actually the proprietor. And therefore there's no real need for us to actually desire any fruit because we can't really get any fruit because we'll never own anything. It's not possible to own anything in the material world because ownership implies that we can control something here. Just read the newspaper and see how much we can control. Have you ever thought about how much, so many things are going on and so many people are disturbed about what's going on, but they can't do anything about it. That's why working the principles of Buddha Yoga or Krishna consciousness, one can be relieved from the bond of action. So in other words, if we just accept that we're not the controller, then so much anxiety goes away. We don't have to worry about what's going on in Afghanistan or Israel or the Ukraine because we can't do anything about it anyhow. So why should we worry about it? You can send in your vote, please stop the war. But I don't think it'll count for very much. The president of Israel gets your vote and says, "Oh, he doesn't want the war. Tell the army to stop the war because Mukunda Madhava has told us to call it off." And furthermore, there is no flaw in the process. The same principle is more clearly explained in the 61st verse. So again, Prabhupada goes back to the 61st verse, that Buddha Yoga is to depend entirely on the Supreme, or more specifically on Krishna. And this way, all the senses can be brought under control very easily. So again, Krishna says, Tani sarvani samyamya yukta stitamatpara vashehi yasyandriyani tasya pragya pratishtita. One who restrains his senses and keeps them under full control and fixes his consciousness upon me is be known as a man of steady intelligence. So, here probably now we get an explanation what that verse means. In other words, anyone who reads the 61st verse of the second chapter gets some idea what Krishna is talking about. But really not that much idea. But here Prabhupada is explaining that this Buddha Yoga is to depend entirely on the Supreme, or more specifically on Krishna. In this way, all the senses can become under control very easily. So how do we depend upon Krishna is the question. We fix our consciousness upon Him and engage our senses in His service, and then that's how we depend on Krishna. Depending on Him. In other words, we do what He tells us to do, we fix our consciousness upon Him, and then we're dependent on Krishna. Not extremely difficult. It's not that we have to press our nose to our foot. We just have to do what Krishna asks us to do, and that's called depending. And then we have to think about Krishna, and that's called surrender. We don't have to do anything else. We don't have to become a great scholar, figure out what's the difference, how the atom works. No, we just have to chant Hare Krishna and do some service to Krishna, and that's called surrender to Krishna, and our life will be perfect. Therefore, both the yogas are interdependent as religion and philosophy. So in the verse, Prabhupada had explained two things. Doing devotional service, using the senses for Krishna, and at the same time thinking about Krishna. So that's called religion and philosophy. Generally speaking, many times people are engaged in service, but they don't think about Krishna. Anyone ever had that experience? You're doing service, you don't think about Krishna? So we're doing religious activities. How many people do religious activities in this world, but they never think about God while they're doing it? And how many people think about God, supposedly think about God, but they don't do any religious activities whatsoever? So the idea of religious activities is to help us think about God or Krishna. And if we do religious activities and we don't think about Krishna, that's a waste of time. And if we think about Krishna, but we don't do any religious activities, that's also a wasting our time. not exactly wasting it. There's better ways of doing it. In other words, the idea is if one does, beginning with religious activities or thinking about Krishna, the idea is that eventually the combination will be there. We'll be able to understand through the philosophy that not only we should do service, but we should also think about Krishna. And if we hear about Krishna enough, then we'll learn that actually we should also do some service. So both are good. Religion without philosophy is sentiment or sometimes fanaticism, while philosophy without religion is mental speculation. The ultimate goal is Krishna, because the philosophers who are also sincerely searching after the absolute truth come to the end to Krishna consciousness. In other words, if we're a big philosopher and we go through the austerities so we can think about Brahman, then the result is we'll come to the conclusion that Brahman is a person and that we should serve him. Then one will actually begin to serve Krishna, and then we'll come to the platform of devotional service. On the other hand, if one is just doing service and he never hears about Krishna, he never takes the time to understand the philosophy, he may go doing service again and again and again for many, many years and not actually understand what the object of the service is. Therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says in the 4th chapter that it's better if you do service, but it's even better than that. It's better than just doing service to do that service with some knowledge. Therefore, Prabhupada wanted us not only to do service, but also to come to class and hear about the philosophy, how to do service. The ultimate goal is Krishna, because the philosophers are also sincerely searching after the absolute truth, come in the end to Krishna consciousness. So, which of our scholars know the verse Prabhupada is referring to there, Bhagavad Gita? Loud. Which means? And what does he know? Why does he surrender to Krishna? What does he know? Krishna is the cause of what? He's the cause of all causes. And such a soul is very rare, yes. To actually know that Krishna is causing everything here, that nothing is going on without Krishna's desire or his sanction, such a person who actually comes to that conclusion is quite rare. Usually it takes many, many births of cultivating knowledge. But we can come to it immediately if we just hear from Prabhupada or from Krishna and we accept it, then immediately we come to that conclusion. We can save many, many births if we just accept that conclusion right away. It's also stated in the Bhagavad Gita, this is also stated in the Bhagavad Gita. The whole process is to understand the real position of the self in relation to the super self. So this is a theme that's throughout the Bhagavad Gita. To understand the self in relation to the super self. Now, for the impersonalists, they don't believe there's a super self. So therefore, it's very difficult for them to understand this philosophy, because they think there is no philosophy beyond just merging to Brahman. And therefore, there's no question of understanding their relationship to Krishna. So if it's the impersonal Brahman that's speaking here, then it's not a very intimate relationship with the Bhagavad Gita. Come to me, merge, give up your identity, and just merge into me. Not very exciting. Well, maybe some people may find it exciting. I don't. Wow, I'm going to merge. Can't wait to merge. Woo. It's the end. The indirect process is philosophical speculation, which gradually one may come to the point of Krishna consciousness. So religion is part of the process, but one has to come to the platform of philosophical speculation. Now, it may appear that philosophical speculation, when we hear about it, we just spit at the thought. Philosophical speculation, how lowly. But actually, Krishna says that it's actually an advancement. Now, it may seem a little confusing sometimes. What is karma yoga? What is jnana yoga? What is its relationship to Buddha yoga or bhakti yoga? That may seem very confusing sometimes. But in the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that karma yoga means that one knows that the goal is Krishna, but one is attached to the results of one's work. I think probably use the word fruitive. I don't think Prabhupada is against fruits. Activities for fruits. Prabhupada used to eat fruit in the morning, so it's a different type of fruit. When one knows the goal of life but is addicted to the fruits of activities, he's acting in karma yoga. In other words, there's some idea that I'm doing this and I'm going to get something in return. Even if it's a higher score on my sadhana sheet. That's better than not putting it on the sadhana sheet. But that's not why we're doing it. We're performing sadhana with the object of becoming Krishna conscious. Not just so that one can say, wow, look at his sadhana sheet. Sadhu, sadhu, I surrender. No, it's a step because it's part of our process of becoming conscious of Krishna, and it's an inspiration to do this regularly so that we can actually become conscious of Krishna. Not waiting forward to Thursday or Friday and the sadhana sheet is on the board and look at me. Don't look at me, look at my sadhana sheet. Isn't it nice? Because I'm nice. So this fruitive mentality. Wow, there's an apple up there. I get an apple. The indirect process fills up by gradually. And what is process? Jnana yoga means that we know the goal is Krishna, but we take pleasure in mental speculation to understand Krishna. So what does that mean? Mental speculation to understand Krishna. Is that bad? Do you think that's bad? When we hear the word mental speculation, mental speculation, what does that mean? Well, this mental speculation means that we don't quite understand what we're trying to understand. So we hear one opinion, we hear another opinion, we just kind of like try and figure out what's going on. Now there's philosophical speculation, which means we take the philosophy and we try to hear other parts of the philosophy and then assimilate it so we can understand what does it mean in a deeper way. That's called philosophical speculation. We hear from what does karma yoga mean here? What does karma yoga mean there? What does it mean there? And therefore we take it all together and try to assimilate it so it's consistent. We can see how it's the same thing being explained just in different ways or in different points of view. Then the result is somebody may say, oh, that's what it means. And then when we come across karma yoga again, then we remember this is what actually it's talking about. We see it in another context, and it adds on to our understanding of karma yoga. The understanding of karma yoga starts building and building and building, and it becomes clearer and clearer and clearer. Now, mental speculation means that we hear what karma yoga means from here, and we hear what karma yoga means from there, and we try and figure out which one is correct and which one is wrong. That's called mental speculation. But that's not bad either. Well, it's not bad. It's not good. In other words, on the mental platform, we're not using our intelligence so much to assimilate as to try to figure out which is good and which is not good, or which is good and which is better. Philosophical speculation means we're building on something to make it clearer and clearer and clearer. Just like sometimes devotees get into a discussion, and when they get into the discussion, someone says something, and then someone just goes off on a completely, doesn't accept what they said, doesn't even hear what the person just said, just goes off on a completely different tangent, as if it's what they said is completely irrelevant. And now I'm going to present my understanding of it, which is surpassing yours. And therefore we can just negate what you said, and what I say comes out triumphant. I've won. That's part of mental speculation. But philosophical speculation means we work together to build up our understanding of what's being said. So I don't try to contradict you. I try to add on to you. I try to help. Try to expand about what you're saying. The indirect process is philosophical speculation. So actually Prabhupada is talking about philosophical speculation. So when there's philosophical speculation, then one makes much more faster progress. When there's mental speculation, you can go on for thousands of years, a long, long time, and not get any results. Therefore, bonam janmanam ante jnanamam prapadite. After many, many births of death, one who's finally is the knowledge of me, finally is utilizing philosophical speculation in their reading, in their investigation, in their discussion, they come to the conclusion, Vasudeva Sarvamiti, Krishna is everything. So he's not fighting with everyone to become supreme by using knowledge. He's actually serving everyone. He's part of a team, serving everyone to understand things clearly. Who's a good example of mental speculation? Keshava Kashmiri, the Pandit, went around everywhere debating with all the Pandits in Bengal or in India, defeating them. Yeah, he was a Pandit. In other words, they'd say something and he'd defeat it. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to do that also. He'd say something, he'd get into an argument with Mukunda. Mukunda would say something, and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would defeat it. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would defeat, with arguments, what he just said, which had defeated Gadadhar Pandit. In other words, there's no end. It's called agitating people's minds. They say something, you defeat it, and then you defeat what you just said. So there's no tarka apratishta shuddhi. There's no end to the argument. Where did the soul come from? Have you ever heard that? Where did the soul come from? Have you ever heard that? Lakshmi Priya, a debate upon where the soul came from. What's that? Did you ever wonder why the soul came to the material world? So that we've been discussing that in ISKCON for at least 40 years now. It's a famous scissor and knife debate. You've heard the scissor and knife debate? Two pandits were arguing whether it was done by scissors or a knife. And they got into such an argument that finally the person who was advocating for the knife, he picked up the person who was advocating for the scissors and threw him into the Ganges. But the person who was advocating for the knife, for the scissors, he didn't know how to swim. But right before he drowned, he put up 2 fingers and made the sign of a scissor. So that's mental speculation. Tarka pratishta shruti avibhina. Of these two, the path of Krishna consciousness is better because it does not depend on purifying the senses by a process of philosophical process. Krishna consciousness itself is a purifying process, and by the direct method of devotional service, it is simultaneously easy and sublime. So in other words, devotional service with the background of knowledge, just accepting Krishna as God and everything here is meant to serve him, with that background, is better than the purifying process of philosophical speculation. Because by philosophical speculation and assimilating the knowledge, which is very good also, then the result is that we learn how to do devotional service better. In other words, we start thinking that, maybe Krishna is the light and the sun and the moon, and maybe when I see the sun, moon, I should remember Krishna, etc., etc. So that's very helpful as part of the process. But by devotional service, we just think everything here belongs to Krishna. Everything, not just the sun and the moon. Everything belongs to Krishna. And I have to utilize everything for Krishna's service. Therefore, one does everything out of devotion, and the result is that one remembers Krishna, and if one remembers Krishna, then everything is seen in relationship to Krishna. The indirect process is, yes, Krishna is the light and the sun and the moon, so when I see the light and the sun and the moon, I remember Krishna. Or I taste water, I remember Krishna. But if I think everything belongs to Krishna, and then naturally this is Krishna's energy, and when I taste it, everything becomes Krishna. If I do everything for Krishna to please him, then I'll remember him, and then I'll realize, experience that everything is related to Krishna, and appreciate that this water is being given to me by Krishna to quench my thirst. And therefore I'll appreciate. On the other hand, if I just take the water and think, well, this is Krishna's, there may be some appreciation, that's the idea, and it just may be some recognition that everything belongs to Krishna, and therefore it's not mine, it was given to me by Krishna. But by devotion, we appreciate it. Krishna has given me this water to quench my thirst, and I think how kind Krishna is. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Yes. We have our microphone, I think.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Just I have confused. You said someone do religion service and do Krishna consciousness. And some, they are active with Krishna consciousness, do service, but don't do religion service.
No, yes, I can see why the confusion is there. Now, just plain religion has nothing to do with Krishna consciousness. But when we're talking about, that's called just karma. Karma is religion. When we're talking about karma yoga, there's some idea that Krishna is God. And therefore we're following his instructions. And we may be doing it, with the idea that this is for Krishna. But we don't really remember Krishna so much. But we have some vague idea we're doing this for Krishna. Now we have classes, for instance, so that we can understand more clearly how to do that same activity and remember Krishna at the same time. So we're adding knowledge to the work of service we're doing. We may have some knowledge, We have some idea because we know, as it says, that there's some detachment, there's some knowledge in karma yoga in the beginning. But because we're attached to the fruits of our work, therefore we're more attached to the fruits. We think Krishna is he's the big daddy up in the sky, and he's going to give us everything we want. Therefore, we're thinking more about the fruits of what we're going to get than we think about the daddy in the sky. Because Maya takes our intelligence away. It won't allow us to understand Krishna because we're attached to the material energy. So by Jnana Yoga, which means what we know the goal is Krishna, we're attached to mental speculation to understand Krishna. Instead of philosophical speculation to understand Krishna, we're attached to mental speculation. We're attached to reading and studying and maybe adding to our knowledge, and that helps us improve our devotional service. But we never come to the clear conclusion. Therefore, we never really advance towards Buddha Yoga. We may stay on the platform of Jnana Yoga for a long time. And still we start recognizing that actually I'm more attached to the process of understanding than I am to the understanding. It's kind of like the seekers. People are eternally seeking, but they never really want to find out what the answer is because they're actually enjoying the seeking, the investigation. People will read thousands and thousands of books on this, we have books, people are reading everything, when Prabhupada was here, we had like 4 books Prabhupada said we can read. There was Nectar Devotion, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya, or Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And then we have, Govinda Lilamrita, everything, book after book after book. And people are reading all the books. But they don't have time to do any service. They're attached to the discovery, the investigation. And they read all these high topics as if they're there in Goloka Vrindavan with Radha and the gopis serving Krishna. But they never really, Prabhu, can you wash the pots? No, I can't. I'm too busy investigating. So that's called mental speculation. You just go on and on and on and on investigating. But you never assimilate the knowledge to conclude. Like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what were his 2 favorite books that he liked to read? Hear about, the 2 favorite pastimes. Do you know what the 2 favorite pastimes Lord Chaitanya liked to hear about? It may surprise you. Do you know? Anyone know? Yes, Dhruva Maharaj and Prahlad Maharaj. He would hear them again and again and again. He wasn't hearing about Krishna and the gopis again and again. I mean, maybe he was, but mainly he was hearing about Prahlad Maharaj and Dhruva Maharaj again and again. Because these are devotees who actually accepted Krishna and was rendering sincere devotional service to him under very difficult circumstances. So he really appreciated that. So karma yoga, jnana yoga, when jnana yoga reaches the platform of philosophical speculation, instead of arguing, we start assimilating and accepting. This is part of the process of perfecting our karma yoga, our devotional service to Krishna. We're not stopping service, we're just adding Krishna to the service more and more. We're deepening our understanding. Because we're giving up the idea, I need something back from my service, other than simply to please Krishna. That's jnana yoga, that's philosophical speculation, leading to actually the whole reason why I'm doing this service is just to please Krishna, and then that's called Buddha Yoga. So Prabhupada writes in the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, I used to give classes on this verse regularly, and I never understood what Prabhupada was talking about. It seems very mysterious. This is the second paragraph. This fifth chapter is a practical explanation of Krishna consciousness, generally known as Karma Yoga. The question of mental speculation as to how Karma Yoga can give liberation is answered herein. To work in Krishna consciousness is to work with a complete knowledge of the Lord as the predominator. Such work is not different from transcendental knowledge. Direct Krishna consciousness is bhakti yoga, and jnana yoga is the path leading to bhakti yoga. Krishna consciousness means to work in full knowledge of one's relation with the Supreme Absolute Truth, and the perfection of this consciousness is full knowledge of Krishna, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, we're hearing this philosophy, and naturally there's going to be a tendency to not understand it, but when we try to assimilate it, that Prabhupada says there's a difference between just reading these books and trying to assimilate them. Because when we try to assimilate this knowledge, then the result is something clicks in our mind and it becomes simple. Now we may read these books and we think, oh, this is really complicated. I don't know what Prabhupada's talking about here. Because we're not seeing it. We haven't assimilated the knowledge. But that's all right. We should read the books regularly. And even if we haven't assimilated the knowledge, gradually, something will sink in. Connections were made. And then we'll be able to understand things better. And that will help us improve our devotional service. Yes?
Maharaj, you explaining karma yoga, then jnana yoga.
Yeah.
After bhakti yoga or karma yoga, this 18th chapter have, the first 6 chapters is karma yoga, the middle 6 chapters is bhakti yoga, then last is jnana yoga. So why not karma yoga, jnana yoga, then bhakti yoga? So what is the meanings, the theory of?
Because the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, it's called karma yoga, which means ultimately devotional service. Because it concludes with saying that even if you're a Astanga yogi, that the perfection of Astanga yoga is to meditate on Krishna. In other words, it's not just karma or doing just service. It's doing service in such a way as you gradually elevate your consciousness through the different stages. Therefore, in the 5th chapter is called Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. So, and then it goes from just simple work in the 3rd chapter to knowledge in the 4th chapter of Krishna, and then combining work and knowledge together in the 5th chapter, and then meditation on Krishna in the 6th chapter through the different processes of karma yoga, jnana yoga, and bhakti yoga. So the first 6 chapters, it's called karma yoga, meaning the perfection of karma yoga is reached at the 6th chapter, meditation on Krishna, through the process of karma yoga, the perfection of karma yoga being meditation on Krishna. And one of the processes is Astanga yoga. But then Krishna immediately starts out improving on karma yoga by saying that if you just hear from me and then practice devotional service, that's even higher than the Astanga yoga, where you're meditating on Krishna. So I guess it's a little subtle, because when Prabhupada says karma yoga, it's devotional service, but the perfection of karma yoga is explained in the first verse of the 7th chapter, right after the yogi who is meditating on Krishna. But then he also says, rendering transcendental loving service to me. So it's implied that the yogi who's actually meditating on Krishna, then he comes to the platform of at least becoming on the neutral stage, or maybe even dasya rasa, starting to render service to Krishna. And then Krishna says, you don't have to go through all this, the karma yoga, the jnana yoga. You can just hear about me and then practice devotional service. So therefore he says in the 5th chapter, you can go through the process, and the result is you'll come to realize what Krishna says in the 7th chapter. You can do that only the Sankhya Yoga Pritag Bhava Pravadanti Mani Pandita Ekam Apyasita Samyak Ubaya Vidate Phulam. Oh, the ignorant speak of karma yoga as being different from the analytical study of the material world, Sankhya Yoga. One who's wise, Sankhya Yoga, which is the 6th chapter. one who's wise knows that one who applies himself well to one of these paths achieves the results of both. So by just regular devotional service we're accepting the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, beginning, we're hearing about Krishna and then rendering service, or one who goes through the whole process of karma yoga, regulated activities according to the Vedas, cultivating knowledge through cultivating knowledge, usually through beginning mental speculation or assimilating the knowledge, and then meditation. They'll come to the conclusion, I'm Krishna's servant, I should render service to him. Or one who comes to that conclusion at the beginning and thinks that I'm Krishna's servant, I should render service to him, they both reach the perfection of knowledge. One after many, many lifetimes, and one after a very short period of time. If we accept devotional service and action in Krishna consciousness and utilize devotional service to get free from our anarthas, which are due to our contamination of desiring free results, and we're speculating, and just start assimilating the knowledge and accept that we're Krishna's eternal servant, then we become purified very quickly. Or if we just chant Hare Krishna without offense, then we become purified very quickly. And the result is we achieve perfection. Or one can do it very gradually through the process of karma yoga, jnana yoga, stanga yoga, and then accept devotional service. So the thing is, we have this tendency, because we're conditioned, we're trying to chant Hare Krishna offenselessly and listen, but our minds are full of speculations and we still have desires, and therefore there's something called regulated activities, so that we stop trying to, we try to understand where my desires are, so I can give up these material desires. We try to understand how I'm not really concentrating very much when I'm hearing, and therefore there's a lot of speculation going on. And therefore, by this process also, we're trying to get free from our tendency to karma and for yoga, and come to the platform of pure devotional service. Although we're performing directly the process, we still have this tendency to become contaminated by karma and jnana. Although karma is supposed to free us from karma, or karma yoga is supposed to free us from the tendency for desiring free results, then we come to the platform of jnana yoga. It's supposed to free us from mental speculation. And then Astanga yoga, where we meditate upon Krishna, we're supposed to inspire us to do service, but we're taking the direct process so that we can become very quickly free from desires, material desires for results, and from mental speculation, assimilate the knowledge, realize we'll meditate on Krishna, and just become completely dedicated to his loving service. Hare Krishna. Anything else? Thank you for the question. Anyhow, we should appreciate this process. Even we don't understand it, still we should appreciate it. It will help us a lot. Hwala Grantraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande.